So I'm glad you took a cup of tea, because before we put any slide on, I want to tell a little story, because I think it's a good time. It's 3 p.m. and I think you deserve your cake and your cup of tea at that point in time. So first, I want to kind of take it all back to where it all started. So I know that obviously it's so difficult. I work in the art world and that bio sounds impressive, but I want to kind of strip it back to where it all started when I was a 5 years old little girl and where I'm from. So I'm from a tiny island off the west coast of France, which is called Ile de Ré. And I have two parents. One is a primary teacher and the other one is a sport teacher. And I grew up very much with six people in the same school, and you have to walk for 30 minutes to the bus stop. There are crabs on the road as you walk to the bus stop, and you would just see the sea, and that will be it. There will be nothing to do. Most shops are closed during the winter, and only during the summer then you will kind of see tourists. So that's very much where I started. And the reason I want to explain all of this is because you will see that the company I've created, the career I've had, is thanks to that 5 years old little girl, which is why I feel we need to listen to the 5 years old a lot more. So that little girl was unhappy with her reality for many, many reasons. Sadly, my dad was quite violent, and I also didn't have access to a lot of, social with people, because obviously it was quite a tiny place. So I started reinventing a world. And to do that, I invented it visually. So I transformed my bedroom. So I was someone that was really creative. I would be drawing a lot. I would make my bedroom really creative. I also used to see as an escape. So every time I was sad, every time I was not feeling very upbeat, then I will just go and walk to the sea and feel better. And I will be walking through the countryside and the vineyards for hours as well to kind of feel better. And then I escaped through stories. I started reading really early on, and I just love stories. I love biographies as well. I love movies about people. I love to see how someone was overcoming challenges, because that was something that I could take on and think, okay, how are they doing it so that I can be doing the same? So those three things, which are, using the environment as an inspiration, up to redesigning your entire space visually, up to needing people who are really inspiring around you and great stories, is actually what I do as a job. And it's exactly now 25 years later what I have become. And obviously now it's a career. So that's hopefully reassuring, because I definitely didn't have any connection in the art world. I definitely didn't have a plan to land that job, but I had a very strong vision that I had understood that having inspiring people, having all of these things made me feel really a lot better. And I think there was a strong gut instinct in me that therefore if something made me feel so much better when the rest was sadly not very happy, then I had to somehow make it a career, because this must be something that is valuable. So fast forward 25 years later, and then this is when now we need the slide, because this has become now an actual job. So I've created a talent agency. So now luckily Netflix can help me, because there's a TV show called Call My Agent. So this should, help people understanding a bit more what my job is. But you basically are on the hunt for the most inspiring people. And obviously I'm in the art space, so I'm on the hunt with my team for the most inspiring artists. And what does it take to be an inspiring person? Well, we want someone that's not only adding value visually, so they're rethinking the way we look at things. So if they do something in painting, they will be using a material or colors together that you just haven't seen before, that is enabling you to kind of see the world back again. And they also are people who, you have this feeling when you meet them for now, they give you energy for like 10 days, like, because they have an appetite and a desire to live, to go through life that is just so incredible. Like, and you just take that energy with you, and it helps you cope again. And it's the same in terms of the stories of their work or their art. It's like incredibly inspiring. So that's basically what my job is, spotting them and then making sure that they are successful, that they have the top contracts, the top partnerships, and that they basically get to inspire everybody else. And going back to my 5 years old self, then they get, they get to inspire 5 years old like I was as well. And hopefully they get to inspire the people like me who would think, oh, I want my life to be inspiring. So moving on to the next slide, I mean, at that point, we've become a bit larger. So we've got offices in London, Paris, Madrid, and Monaco. And, I think that's really nice, actually. That the reason I chose this visual is because Hope with that little plaster is a photograph by our artist Claire Loxton. This went absolutely viral last year, and this was on the magazine Harper's Bazaar with a full article about the power of the arts. And it's just so magical to see a picture literally telling like thousands of words across to everyone, and people really identifying with this picture last year during the lockdown. And you can see that the fact that she's slightly cried is giving back life to the flowers that you see behind the plaster. So it's really poetic. And it was just so nice to see everyone reposting it, everyone feeling better with that pictures. And some people have even kind of got it for the walls of their houses. And some, like I have it on my phone case. So it was kind of a really lovely, amazing movement last year. So going back to my 5 years old self, like it's just, again, so amazing to see that visuals can be a trigger even at a time where you're super low, you are to such a low point. And that is something that my job is giving me, 10 times a day. And that just feels amazing. So second thing is third slide, sorry, next slide. So I think that's going back again to my young self. So obviously I was going to the seaside and look at the sea. And I remember I would just sit and then watch the sea. And if I was feeling unhappy, I'm sure we've all done that, but you can see that you feel that almost the sea is absorbing all your emotions and kind of turning it around again. And you feel a slightly bit better after this. So I kind of kept this in a part of my heart, and I kept this with me, thinking, how can I do this as a job again? And as you can see on that image, this is, on the left, this is Piccadilly Circus. So we've put lines of silver with poetry on top of it back in September. And we've done public art projects like this for years, but I'm just showing you specifically 2020 because I'm so aware that this was a difficult year. So hopefully there's some learnings through that. And then L'Occitane, with one of the French retail store, gave us the shop front windows to also be transformed. So there's this huge butterflies. And at night, if you pass it on Regent Street and it gets lit and it's like super colorful. And then if you use the app Artivive, then it also gets activated, which is completely magical. And then again, the third slide is in Capco in Covent, thanks to Capco in Covent Garden. And we put this huge sphere where, again, it was reflecting on all the architecture around, so completely magical. And at night, it will have different colors. So it will still reflect the architecture, but have all these different colors. So I think what I'm trying to say here is for anyone who is not really structured, for anyone who is feeling like, I have a lot of imagination. Well, my imagination is the reason I'm able to do my job and the reason why the company is in this place. When I was 5, when I was 10, I was told I had too much imagination, that maybe the real world was not going to be something that worked out. And now when you see these projects, and they are a reminder, and I hope we can give that as a reminder that imagination is one of the key thing that you can have as an adult, as a kid, because you can reinvent your reality even if you're not happy with it. And that's just exactly what we're doing. We're reinventing Piccadilly Circus in London. We're reinventing Covent Gardens, and we're giving them new textures, new colors, new narrative, new messaging, just so that people feel that little bit better as they pass it. And it's so magical. I remember when I did the Covent Garden one in September last year, I sat on the litter bench next to it, just hiding, and seeing everyone having reactions was just like made me incredibly happy. So if we go to the next slide again, you have further examples of the ones that are currently going on. There's the one of Delphine. So Delphine Diallo is one in terms of women that I would say absolutely go and check her out. She is in Brooklyn. She's French Senegalese. The way she's, and I think if you feel slightly down, you just go on her Instagram and you feel 100 times higher. She's that incredible breath of energy. She's so empowering, I think, and she's so driven to empower as women. So this is 12 meters. So you have to imagine it. You basically have 12 meters running through Regent Street with different portraits of women and young girls. And that's kind of giving a chronology of how far women have come from the 1920s to today. And again, like you just never get tired of it. You just never get tired of walking by, seeing people, looking up to them, and just thinking like, how many times have we seen women portrayed in that way that is just so inspiring, so positive. It's not a fashion shoot. It's not an advertising shoot. It's just women looking absolutely incredible, like icons. It's super symbolic. And then people pass it. And it's just, that is hopefully what we should see more in our cities, and that's something that I hope to do more. The second one, St. James's Market, is another display that is currently going on, where every single litter window is a different image. Jennifer Bissera is, again, an incredibly inspiring artist. She's someone that sadly had a car accident 6 years ago, and she's now completely fine. But just after the car accident, she had to stay for 6 months in hospital, during which time the only way she could create was using her Instagram and using her tablets. And that is the reason why she's able to create this like super humorous responses to the internet through using Instagram images and then her little pen on top of it, which is very cool. So I think we also wanted to put this on because we wanted to say, here's a very resilient response to what we're currently going through that is also very colorful, that is also very positive. And hopefully, again, as we pass it, people can just get a little bit happier. Expect Magic and Miracles are a neon light, which is in Holborn in London. That is, again, by a female artist, Lauren Baker. And if you also follow her on, Lauren Baker is literally just light and positivity, and it just ripples. So her neon pieces are made obviously of neon, but also of acrylic paint just in the background of that. So you just have this light and this acrylic, and it's just super magical again. And I feel the three of them, Jennifer Bissera, Lauren Baker, and Delphine Diallo, if you ever having a down day, then if you just look at this, you just think, wow, I'm not having a down day anymore. And going back to we always think, and that's sadly because the art world is so elitist, that this is just, it's just for people who have a lot of cash. And that's the reason why one goes into the art world. The reason I told my story, the reason I'm telling my story today, the reason I'm showing you the public art is because that's free to have a look. And going to the sea, going to see an art piece, going to the nature, anything that you can do that's just going to make you feel that a little bit better, it should be accessible, is accessible. And I think curating a visual diet that is inspiring is therefore essential. And especially over the past year, we've learned how relevant the images we consume are on our mental health. And the previous speaker was very much putting a highlight on the mental health aspect of things for the same reasons. So let's go to the next slide. So I think this is, again, little things. I think it's little bits of creativity. I thought I would just give you tons of tips on how creativity can be helpful, and hopefully creativity that I feel is really handy. I think as a young woman, again, we've talked so much about it before I joined this conference, we may have read when I said, the art world is not really welcoming normally of younger women. It's a very established system. It's very hierarchy, and it's done in a certain way. It's super formal. We're very lucky that we're one of the fastest growing companies in the art world. In fact, yesterday, the top paper in our sector said that we were one of the lead companies currently globally, which is an incredible feeling, because I can't even tell you how difficult it is to disrupt something that is very traditional. And so I think when we started disrupting the sector, I didn't want to just send formal ways to get people to be happier. Like, the reason I do my job is because I think those artists are really inspiring. And I think, again, looking at art can be super inspiring. So I didn't just want, the idea of being super formal about it. So I think this is again, taking back the example of last year, really lovely little examples of things that I've loved doing, because it's kind of changing the idea that people have of the art world and the very stuffy art world. So the picture on the left is me and my son, who at the time, I think he was 8 months old. And I don't know if you know Piccadilly Circus, but you have these huge screens, which are basically enormous as you go on Piccadilly Circus. And we transform this with the art of our artists, and saying that they will continue to work to inspire people, and with all the images. That was really magical. And the reason I put that picture of my son as well is because, as any of the mothers during lockdown 1, I didn't have any childcare, and for the idea of my son to be a part of how we could help other people felt beyond empowering as a young female, because he's a little boy and he's seeing his mum working and loving what she do. Plus, he's part of incredibly meaningful moments, which I'm sure he won't remember, especially at that age. But there's something about the fact that he's been part of every single part of this, which is meaningful to all of us as a team. The second thing is a little postcard. So we got our artists to send it a postcard. I'm a big fan of the post. I'm a big fan in using also little visuals and send them, because we all get so much post that's about bills, and that's just really boring. So we wanted to kind of, again, say thank you to our community and say we're here to support and we're here to inspire. And so my artist did some really cool little postcards, and it was so magical to see everyone receiving them in all corners of the countries we work in. So that was also very magical. I think it's also something that I've learned from being part of a TAF background, is just being human about it and being upfront about it. And the fact that my colleague and I here are appearing in that video is because on that picture, on the third picture, was very much because we were so every day checking in with our community, every day checking in with our clients and checking in with our team, saying we're on the ground, we're trying to find solutions that will inspire you, which a lot of them were the public arts projects that I've showed you. And I think it's really nice. I think from a female perspective, it's, again, I can't even tell you how the sector would look at us. Like, it's just, although, we are very successful for the sector, we do it in such different ways. We do it with younger female, with smiles, not looking too serious, not taking ourselves too seriously, and with all these little actions. And I think it goes back again to the story of being a 5 years old, where I was able to imagine, I guess, the kind of woman I wanted to be at 5 and stick to it, even if it wasn't in a history book, even if it wasn't in anywhere in business, because I didn't want to wear suits. I love my dresses and I like being quite girly, but equally I close quite large partnerships. But my visuals of my little girl self was just like, well, I want to be able to do both. And that's the same with me being able to carry my kid while doing something that's an incredibly meaningful partnership for us. So I think that's just little examples of what it means daily to be a female founder, and all the examples that you can do. And the reason I think where that contract with your younger self is just absolutely essential to keep. So I think you have, if you go on the next slide, you have further example of that. Oh, no, sorry, we've missed one. Oh, no, sorry, this is me. I'm looking at the wrong one. Obviously, my computer has sadly had a bit of a day, so completely my fault. So I think this is, going back to also what we do. So I think the reason I put this at the end of the presentation is because I don't want anyone to feel that the art world is just about buying expensive artworks for your home, because I think realistically that is inaccessible for most, and that would be wrong, morally wrong, I think, for me to say anything about that as a first and foremost. So I think but I think obviously it's enormous. Like, for me, I get up in the morning and I get surrounded by stories, by visual stories. It's a bit like when you watch Walt Disney when you're younger, and they tell you the stories through this amazing drawings. Well, I walk through my house, and the three ones I've put, whether it's Amber with portrait, who is therefore going through a house and she's redefining what her narrative is, and the painting she has behind her, that big planet, is to do with how much she cares about sustainability. I've really put hope, because I'm also living with hope, and the fact that every day I wake up, I go and take my shower, and there's this huge hope that's next to me. It's again constantly a way to reaffirm what our visual narratives are. How do we define our visual narrative? How do we shape who we want to tell the world we are visually, which I think it's just super essential when you are someone that cares about it. And so I think that's basically it. I hope this gives you a little insight onto the kind of people that they are, the role that imagination has on the young woman, and if obviously there's no options, if it doesn't exist who you want to be, then using that little bit of imagination, you can really find that, reimagine it visually. And 25 years later, if I was to encounter that 5 years old, she'll be surprised that most of the contract has been respected, and I have trusted her more than any of the advice I've ever received. And that is the power very much of the narrative and the imagination. So I hope this helps. I hope for anyone that is not too structured and need to hear that today, I hope this is valuable.